1,000 miles to get here. Here I am in rural India, and the air is thick and unreasonably sticky for April. And it's attacking my senses with all these unfamiliar scents and sounds from the mango trees above me, from the food vendor and all their spices that are just down the road, and from the musk of the 5 pastors that are standing really close to me. And I'm out of my element. But I've come fully prepared for this, and we're about to go across the street to go to the internet cafe to test a new software for scripture translation. Dr. Alex interrupts my thoughts and says, we can't go into the internet cafe. I'm like, well, if it's a matter of cost, we've got this covered. We knew there were going to be overhead expenses with this project. This is an innovative project, and so we've covered it. And he says, no, as gentle as he can, he says, Sister Cheryl, we cannot go into the internet cafe. And I'm confused. And so he continues, because he can tell that I don't know what's going on. He says, nefarious things happen in internet cafes. Nefarious things. He doesn't even have to explain that to me. I am speechless and appalled and incredibly embarrassed. Because asking these 5 pastors to go test the product in this internet cafe is the same as me asking all of you to go to the Gentleman's Club with me. I don't know what to do at this point, but we cannot test this way. I have to figure something else out. That was in 2011. By that time, the software industry had been using the term fail fast for over a decade. Silicon Valley kind of latched onto it, and entrepreneurial societies and groups and startup communities were using it everywhere. There were fail cons and fail fests and fuck up nights, and it was everywhere. It even made its way into almost everybody's interview questions. When was the last time you failed and how did you handle it? You're wrong about failure. Edison's quote that everybody knows so well is, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. The etymology of the word failure is from a Latin word called fallere, which means to deceive or disappoint. So think about that for a moment. The light bulb didn't exist. So he wasn't just saying, I haven't failed because I learned from my failures and I'm failing forward and I'm failing fast. No, he really just hadn't failed. There were no unmet expectations. He was just experimenting on his theories, and one day it worked. That's what innovation is. Innovation is constant iteration. It is messy, it is chaos, it does not make sense. And so, how do we continue to innovate if we are afraid of failure? Failure puts us in the mindset, just human instinct-wise, of fight or flight. So if you are using a culture of failure to create a culture of innovation within your organizations, if you are using this as the learn from your failures and you will progress forward, you're putting people in a fight or flight mindset. You're actually forcing them to play it safe so that they can continue to succeed. So the innovations that you create within your team are adjacent to the things that you already have. You're not going to have the light bulb moment. You're not going to have something completely new. So when a problem is incredibly complex, it's really hard to solve. And this is why most people do not solve complex problems. They solve the problems that they know what the outcome's going to be. That's a lot of the challenges that we do in business, is we say, well, this is the problem we want to solve. Not, we've run into an obstacle and we don't know what the problem is. Houston, we have a problem. How many of you know that line? Almost everybody in the room. Apollo 13's mission was to land on the moon. It did not land on the moon. Houston, we have had a problem. In this particular instance, they were out of their element. It was a malfunction with the systems. It was not necessarily anybody's fault. It wasn't a problem that they came into it knowing how to solve. They had limited resources, and yet failure was not an option. That line was said in the movie, and later on Gene Kranz, the flight director of NASA, actually used that as the title of his autobiography. Because failure was not an option because lives were at stake. Later on, you'll find that this mission was considered a successful failure. That's what it was called in all of the magazines, newspapers, news reports. But if you look at NASA's report, they never use the word failure in that report anywhere. And part of that's probably tied to federal funding, like you don't want to say you failed on a project. But also, the mindset of failure was not what they were going for. That every idea in that instance was a good idea. Okay, let's try that, let's try that. You have to be open-minded about the situation when death is on the line, but when anything's on the line. And so if we are afraid of failure, I'll ask again, what do we do? When we lead strategy workshops, back when we used to do these in person, most strategists will show up with Post-it notes and whiteboards and markers, and we have a lot of exercises to go through in a strategy workshop, right? I show up with spaghetti and string and marshmallows, and we do an exercise called Marshmallow Challenge. It's the first exercise we do with executives. And the reason is, I need to change their mindset. I go into a strategy workshop and they think they know the problem that they need to solve. And sometimes it's true, and sometimes there's a piece of that problem in what we need to uncover. But a lot of times, we just need to open up the room to everybody that's there and to find out what is going on in the organization. So the Marshmallow Challenge has actually been studied by a lot of universities and other executives, and they have found that kindergartners succeed at this challenge better than CEOs. Like 99% of the time. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to stack up the spaghetti, tape it together, use the string, and put your giant marshmallow right on top, and it cannot fall over. It reminds me of my kids playing with all their Legos. You know, when I play with Legos, I follow the instructions. I look at the box and I see what it's supposed to look like, and I solve the puzzle, and I put it together, and you know what? I have an Eiffel Tower Lego set, and it is still put together, and it is on my office shelf. I'm so proud of that. My daughter's Legos are in a box in a jumble. The instructions are lost, and yet kids love playing with them. Play is actually something that unlocks a different part of our brain. It is not something that has a specific outcome, it just is. And it's something that a lot of us have forgotten how to do, especially when we've gotten into business. And the reason for that is because there are 7 stages of business, as I heard recently from an entrepreneur. One of those stages early on is called fun. And isn't it fun when we have a passion for something and we figure something out and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, it's gonna work. We made our first sale, we made our second sale, we made our third sale. This is so much fun. Like we thought it was gonna work, but oh my gosh, it's really working. And those early stages of business are fun. And then we're hiring people, and they're amazing people, and they're bought into it. And then we go into whitewater, where there's chaos. And let me tell you, chaos, that's what innovation looks like. It is chaos. But from that chaos, we know that the next stage to get in business is predictable success. And to get to predictable success, what do? We create process. And process is like the magical word of like, if you want to sell your business, Create a process that's repeatable, that everybody can do, and the numbers just fall into place. But yet the next stage of business is the treadmill. And so when everything falls into place, it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And then something happens, like an economic crisis, or a pandemic, or a health issue in the family. Something always happens. And it's that unpredictability that causes a wrench in that process. And what do? You have to go back to fun. If you cannot get back to fun, if you cannot get back to that freedom of innovating, then your business is going to end up in the death rattle stage. And that's just what happens. Process is so necessary to progress, and yet true success doesn't necessarily come just from that. True success is being able to keep your business thriving in new things, to keep that fun, and to bring your whole team into it. So one thing that we do at Cause Labs, when we had a larger team and we were all in person together, is we had lab days. And lab days are one day a month that we actually invested in saying you are not going to do client work, you are not going to do any client projects, any client meetings. Just today, we are going to learn something new, build something new, create. So it sounds like wasted time, right? We spent about $58,000 in 1 year investing in lab days because they were not doing client work on those days. But out of that, we got a project, a program, and of course, we had to continue to iterate on it and build it out and build processes for it. But one of the lab day ideas turned into an app that we charged $3 for. That app got 2 million downloads. It got us so much visibility and notoriety that Lego called us on the phone. And when she said, "This is Leah Weston Hay with Lego," I'm like on LinkedIn, searching, who is Leah Weston Hay? Is this spam? Is this real? Is she really with Lego? And we got this amazing project with Lego. We have gotten in newspapers and magazines and awards just because of a lab day project. And we had multiple lab day projects that actually came out of lab day. So the $58,000 turned into a whole lot more. But the point is, success is not born from failure. It's born from freedom. And play is where innovation is born, where possibilities are born. So going back to India, we had specific outcomes for this project. We wanted to translate the book of Luke in less than 2 years, which was the standard kind of length that it took to translate that book of the Bible. We ended up with 3 translations in 6 months, which is a phenomenal success. But there's a lot of reasons why projects don't get adopted. There's bureaucracy, there's fear, there's investment. And so the true success of that project we found was not necessarily how fast we got the translation. It was actually that we created community building within that community. We took a language that had never been written before and translated it into a Bible. And we increased church planting in that region where there were very few Christians. That project touches my heart, and that's why I speak about that. It's also the same project where I found my poverty story. Things that I didn't know because I was a child and I was too young to know. So the success sometimes is immeasurable. And if I've learned anything from my daughters, we can build crooked towers, and they may fall, but we learn new ways to build. Thank you.